So good morning, everyone, and welcome to the second session of the third EU LiveSeeding webinar on boosting organic seed and plant breeding entrepreneurship. The title of this webinar is Governance and Finance Models for Organic Seed and Plant Breeding in Europe. We are very happy to have you here. Thank you very much for your participation. I would also like to extend a special thanks to the speakers and the moderators that will share today their experiences and insights. My name is Maria Carrascosa, and I am an agronomist specializing in agroecology, food policies, and cultivated biodiversity. And I am part of the Spanish City Network for Agroecology. That is a network that brings together 40 municipalities across Spain. And our work focuses on supporting local governments in developing agroecology-oriented food policies. So food policies that promote sustainable, healthy, diverse, and fair local food systems. This webinar is part of the LiveSeeding Organic Seed and Breeding Entrepreneurship Training Center. And the aim of the webinar is to strengthen the organizational, governance, and financial capacity of existing and emerging organic seed and plant breeding initiatives across Europe. We hope that it will provide participants with practical insights and strategic tools to understand and contrast different governance and financing models currently applied, to explore a wide range of public and private financing schemes, and to learn directly from organic seeds and plant breeding real-life experiences. The webinar is primarily addressed to initiatives involved in organic seed production and organic plant breeding for arable crops and vegetables, with a particular focus on small and medium-sized enterprises and non-profit organizations. It is also relevant for farmers, breeders, and organizations interested in starting organic seed and breeding activities, either from the scratch or by building on previous experiences in conventional farming. If you would like to stay informed about LiveSeeding activities, you can follow the project on its social media channels and subscribe to the newsletter that it's available in our website, liveseeding.eu. I will paste it in the chat. So yesterday we presented an analysis of governance models used by organic plant breeding initiatives across Europe. We held a panel with small and medium-sized initiatives, which helped us to better understand how these governance models are actually implemented in day-to-day practice. And today we will focus on financing models, tools, and strategies to help build a resilient organic and plant breeding sector. So without further delay, let us start the first session, the first presentation, which will present the LiveSeeding analysis on financing models for organic plant breeding across Europe. And for this, I warmly welcome Maria Teresa Lázaro. Maria Teresa is the scientific co-coordinator of LiveSeeding project and the co-leader of the organic plant breeding group at Fibel, Switzerland, with focus on neglected grain legume pre-breeding. Thanks a lot, Maria Teresa, for participating, and the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Super. So as Maria mentioned, we start this morning a discussion related to the financing models for organic plant breeding with an overview of the different financing sources, and I will also present some results of the specific activity and investigation that we did on this topic in the LiveSeeding project. Financing of organic plant breeding, it's a very a hot topic for the sector, given the typologies of initiatives that focus on development of new varieties for the organic sector. Because of this, in the LiveSeeding project, beside, let's say, the technical implementation activities related to actually developing new varieties. We also have an activity that focuses on this topic of the financing of the sector. We actually look or work on the aspect of financing from two different perspectives. We have set together with IFOAM Organics Europe a European task force in order to network and support the financing of organic plant breeding at European level. The main major activity of this will be in June, a donor conference which is being organized or which will take place in Brussels. And we did have one specific implementation project of a financing strategy in Spain, of which I will speak later. On the other side, we look at the financing model of individual organic plant breeding initiatives in connection with all the discussions we had yesterday related to the governance, in order to see how to put together sources or possible sources of financing with the needs and the structures of the organic plant breeding initiatives. And that will be the part on which I will focus in this overview. As the topic is so crucial for the sector, we supported as a FIBOL team several initiatives since actually 2014 on both FIBOL Switzerland and FIBOL Europe on activities to promote organic plant breeding, which of course means on one side awareness raising and dissemination and communication, and on the other side support to the financing opportunities. Via these different initiatives from 2014, we did summarize the financing sources and the type of financial contribution a couple of years ago in a fact sheet, which I will then share with you all. Here we tried to think of which financing sources are across the different value chain and which type of financial contribution. So obviously, I hope that you can follow me on the slide. We have different actors that support in one way or the other the financing of the organic breeding initiatives. Farmers, obviously, by the purchase of reproductive material of these varieties specific for organic conditions. Royalties, subscription, or other type of participation measures that might be implemented. Food processors, where often it is really targeted support for a defined breeding goal, and very often it's a bilateral interaction between a food processor and a breeder. I don't know, in the organic sector, we really need a certain typology of product, which is missing because the right varieties are not available. So there is, let's say, a collaboration between the food processor and the breeders in order to solve such type of lack of varieties. Retailers with individual contributions based also on this type of one-to-one relationship. Consumers of a main, let's say, type of direct contribution by the consumers could be, a premium price at point of sale. For example, there was this initiative of the 1 cent initiative, which comes actually from the organic animal breeding sector. UTZ, organic breeding initiative for chicken and milk cows in Germany, promoted the initiative for which if you buy in a shop an egg that comes from their organic breed, you contribute with 1 cent to the breeding of these special double purpose chicken breeds. Then, for example, funding that comes from private NGOs or foundations. These are usually annual funding that are based on projects, so specific breeding goals, a specific crop, a specific objective. Public donors, that's clear. Of course, this means all the different type of calls, tenders, but it can be competitive, but also non-competitive type of access to public funding according to the scheme, to the funding scheme. Different type of research donors, and what can be also very interesting is public-private co-funding, where basically the private sector investment helps to leverage public funding. So to say, activities in which private co-funding is needed in order to get the public funding. And then from the private sector also source of financing which comes from, let's say, the macro area is green investment, but basically support that can come, for example, from banks that provide special special rules or isn't credit according to certain environmental criteria. And then the last one, it's really coming by society. So first I was speaking of consumers, or really when I buy a product to consume that. And this one, it's more like when, as a citizen, I support a certain initiative because of its values. And these are often, for example, crowdfunding type of initiatives. This is first overview. I will guide you through the example of what is the current situation in Germany and Switzerland with these different funding sources, and what are the, let's say, the pro and also the limitations of the different funding sources. I make the example of Germany and Switzerland because in these countries, organic plant breeding initiatives are there for many years, and the financing structure is, let's say, more settled than in other regions of Europe. And indeed, this exchange in LiveSeeding also should help to leverage knowledge and to leverage, let's say, to see how certain success situations in other countries can be, of course, with the due adjustments to the local context, be implemented in other situations. So keeping in mind that what I explain applies for the case of Germany and Switzerland, donations, so from foundations, and in this case for Germany, the Saatgut Fund, so the seed fund from the GLS Foundation, are very important source of financing for the organic breeding organizations. The Saatgut Fund manages to gather from donors, which are private person, foundations, processor, and retailers, up to 2 million euro per year, which is then upon criteria, with a main criteria that the organization has to be for non-profit, are then the organic plant breeders in Germany can access this fund. This is an important funding resource. The GLS fund for Germany situation, but in general, private foundations in both situations. The good of part of this type of funding is that it requires minimal administrative effort. It is only for non-profit initiatives. The limitation is that is, of course, the total volume of funding that is needed to cover the needs of the organic plant breeders in Germany. It's much higher than this. So of course it's purpose oriented, but it's limited in the volume. And in the case of the Saatgut Fund, it's for organizations which are operating in the country. Licenses, seed production fees, and any other contribution scheme by farmers and gardeners. We had a conversation yesterday about that. Yes, they can generate a certain amount of resources that can flow back in breeding, though the contribution in percentage is low, and it's basically for the scheme and the situation of the organic plant breeding initiatives, with developing locally adapted varieties, which will not take a huge acreage like for major crops and major companies. Basically, this remains a percentage which really doesn't allow to cover the full cost of breeding. We were speaking yesterday of something between 5-10% horizon. Seed sale, it's of course a very important pillar of the financing opportunities. This, how much one can cover with the seed sale, depends very much by the crop and by the local situation. And for example, this is probably easier for the vegetable breeders rather than for the cereal breeders, though it is really an important pillar and an important asset. Public funding, well, what to say about public funding? They are very used, they are very important. There is public funding at national and at European level. The clear limitations, which I guess most of the audience is aware of, is that they need, most of the cases, large or relatively large consortia, and the budget that is really dedicated to practical breeding activities, it's small. It has a quite high administrative level for institutions that are not research institutions, but that are practical breeding initiatives. And they fund research, and it's very difficult to fit the needs of the practical cultivar development in the frame of the research activities. Nevertheless, of course, it's a very important source of funding. The next, which I didn't mention in my general overview, is incentive charges for the use of conventionally untreated seed. This is specific for the Swiss case, in which we have that the main organic farmers organization, BioSwiss, has a scheme which is working very well, for which the farmers, when they, for whatever reason, get the derogation to use conventional untreated seed, they need to pay the gap of price between the conventional seed and organic seed to BioSwiss. BioSwiss operates as, let's say, collecting all these contributions, which goes in a pot, which is then distributed by BioSwiss to the organic breeders in Switzerland, given priorities that the BioSwiss sets in terms of crops or in terms of what is maybe most important felt by the farmers in a certain period. This is a very well working scheme in Switzerland. The limitations is that, of course, it's difficult to implement such thing in a legal regulation because this could cause distortion of competition on the market. So this is voluntary and it's organized by the private label BioSwiss. And of course, if we reach the case where we have 100% or 95% organic seed, then of course this would become obsolete. The next is the crowd funding, so really trying to leverage support direct from the society. Here, the limitation is that usually there is quite an effort, administrative effort, which is needed to set up the platform, to get all the communication that is needed to get the support of people out there. And often then the collected amount is not that high. In LiveSeeding, thanks to the contribute of Maria and also the IFOAM Organics Europe team, we could have scoping case, so really a practical application. In this case, it was not a crowdfunding, but it was a match funding. So there was a collaboration with the Triodos Bank Foundation in Spain. The foundation provided a certain, let's say, X funding for a project, and this was matched up with the crowdfunding. So basically the foundation promised, if you collect €1 by crowdfunding, then we match it with €1 from the foundation funding. And this is somehow a very interesting concept, which can be inspiring for other situations. Participation by the value chain. I was mentioning direct collaboration of organic associations, processors, retailers, wholesalers. There are different cases. So, for example, this project to develop high oleic organic sunflower, where 12 companies really joined forces to invest for up to 7 years in order to get these varieties. The benefits are much. The limitations are that usually it has to come from a very specific problem, lack of varieties, which is felt by the value chain actors, and there is quite a pressure to really deliver with time pressure to solve such type of issue. The value chain participation is very important, and there is much of activity that can be done in terms of awareness raising for the different actors, like the food producers and the retailers and the wholesalers, in order to have this understanding, to have a long-term type of contribute. And ideally, the best situation that we would envision is the organic value chain sector to have, let's say, at level of turnover for organic products, to give back certain amount for breeding. And this ideally would be organized at sector level and not by individual organizations contracts. There are cases in which this worked. For example, at international level, there was a very interesting initiative for organic cotton, the Organic Cotton Accelerator, where the whole sector of organic clothes producing gathered to support together the development of GM-free organic cotton varieties. So this is an example which we try also to, let's say, promote at European level and for other type of crops, or really at sector level. This was until now an overview of what is the current situation and a bit summary of the different sources and opportunities. I will present now shortly the results of the mapping in LiveSeeding. We worked with the 16 initiatives, so it's not a complete overview of all sectors. Those are the same I presented yesterday for the governance strategy. We worked with them to see what are their yearly operational expenses. And from here, we could see that they are micro to small, medium type of enterprises, given their amount of operational expenses per year. What is interesting to look at for our conversation today are the financing sources that these 16 organizations declared for their operational expenses. Here we can see that basically across the different organizations, the subsidies and the funds clearly play a very important role in sourcing the needed financing for the breeding activity, for the operational expenses. And then you see that the other, but much less, is sales. We then asked specifically, the financing source for breeding that comes from subsidies and funds, from what type of subsidies and funds come? You see here the different typologies that are basically the same that I went through one by one in my presentation. What is clear from this graph is that public fundings and funding from foundations are the major funding sources for operational expenses that comes from funds and subsidies. And next, we asked, in the cases that there is a funding from sales, what are the type of sales that are done? And here you can see that in these cases, it's mostly the selling of the plant reproductive material. And as I was mentioning, the income from royalties is relatively small. We then asked, for the financing that comes from public donors, are there non-competitive type of calls? So, for example, rural development measures which are based on criteria of what you deliver, but you are not in competition with other organizations to get that, or the typical research projects which are competitive. And here you see clearly that the vast majority are the type of research project related competitive calls. We then asked about the capital investment. It's not important to look in detail to this graph beside that the 16 organizations that we worked with, they do have a yearly capital expenses below 50,000. So this again to show the small, medium-size type of organizations. What is more interesting is to look at the sources of the capital investment. Here you see that actually very much comes from the sales. This is because often when one needs to do capital investment like buying machines, infrastructure, the research projects, it's very difficult to have such type of investments with the public funding or with the research funding. And mostly then this is financed through the selling of plant reproductive material or own sources of the organizations. And I would say that this is the major information to gather, which brings us to the summary that operational expenditure are primarily covered by funds deriving from competitive calls, often projects from public research schemes. The capital expenditure, on the other side, depends on funding from private donors or own means of the plant breeding organizations, which are often not there. So actually, the possibility of investment is sometimes a very strong bottleneck for the growth of these organizations. So as I said, the two main bottlenecks is the time-wise and sustainability. Always this need to get competitive research funds and to match the research needs with the needs of the practical breeding, and the limited opportunities for infrastructure and technology investment. What we could gather in terms of sustainability of the financial strategy is that key recommendations are market differentiation, to really strongly focus on communication of the unique features of organic varieties, such as the organic heterogeneous material and organic varieties, to really show the unique selling point of these initiatives. Market differentiation in terms of showing how these initiatives are needed for the integrity of the organic sector, and really having a very good relation between the initiatives that develop the varieties and leveraging resources from the plant reproductive material sale, because in many cases this could be improved and better, let's say, have a better, a bit higher return from the plant reproductive material sale. And in terms of where to focus even more, it is, as I mentioned before, the value chain support at sectorial level. So the all organic value chain supporting the breeding of organic varieties as measures for the integrity of the organic sector, and public investment in terms of also other measures like the Rural Development Fund or other schemes where, based on criteria but not on competitive calls, the initiatives could access to financial resources. Apologies for taking a bit more time than planned. I stop sharing now and I am available for questions.
Thank you very much, Teresa, for this very nice and deep, picture of the funding, strategies, tools, models. Do you have participants any questions that you would like to ask to Teresa? I have shared in the chat the link to the deliverable, Teresa, just to let you know. Any question? If not, I have one, Teresa, that I can share with you. I found this proposal in Switzerland fantastic, of giving this 25% in a volunteer basis to BioSwiss, to then fund organic plant breeding. Do you know some figures about this this fund that BioSwiss they collect? If it's high or not, or do you have any data?
So for clarification, the example of the 25% was really an example. It is the real gap by crop between organic seed and conventional seed. And then that contribution is put together. I think that those figures should be public, but I don't know the volume that it's distributed every year. I see that Monica Messmer is in the team. Please, Monica, it's very welcome if you contribute on that.
Yeah, just to say, this money that it's collected, that depends really, like, for example, there's quite a lot of money coming from potato. I actually don't know the actual amount, but I know that this money has been used, for example, to do since many years variety trials of potato to check which are really suitable for organic production, so which are resistant but also suitable for the quality wise. And so the money goes on variety testing. It goes on, for example, certain seed treatments. And it also goes in breeding. And for breeding, for the last year, BioSwiss provided 250,000 Swiss francs, which is about maybe 270,000 euros per year to the organic breeders in Switzerland, with very low administrative burdens. As there's really that part, and I think it's a very nice scheme. And the problem that we can't transfer it to other countries so easily is that in other countries we have, let's say, also competing organic label organizations, and also quite a number of farmers who do not belong to a special label but follow the European organic label. And
the basic one.
As Teresa mentioned, you can't do it as the country can't make a regulation on that, because that would be intervention into the market. So that can only be on a private initiative. So that would mean, for example, in Germany, all the different labels would need to come together and agree together to do that. And of course, that will result that the cost for the farmers is higher. And of course, then if you it's a question how much the farmers are really convinced to do that. So I think communication also about the importance of organic seed and of organic plant breeding is still highly needed, even among the organic sector.
Great. Thank you very much for all the explanation. Indeed, is really a path to explore and to try to understand how to adapt in other countries. Okay, do you have any question? No? Okay, so thanks a lot, Teresa. I think your explanation was great. And we can go to the next panel. Thank you, Teresa. Okay, so now we are going to explore funding sources that can be accessed by small and medium-sized initiatives working on organic seeds and organic plant breeding. We are also going to tackle the requirements and the possible pathways to access to those funds. And to do so, we have prepared a panel that will be presented by the moderator of the panel, that is Caroline Formont, that is a policy officer at IFOAM Organic Europe. Caroline, she works on policy issues related to agricultural inputs and organic textiles. She is notably involved in the currently reform of the plant PRM legislation, plant reproductive material legislation, and is also in the IFOAM partner that it's involved in the LiveSeeding project. Caroline, the floor is yours.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And good morning, everyone. So as Maria said, I will now first present the different speakers we have before we can move on to the different presentations on different funding sources and how to apply for them. So first, the panel will start with Gemma, who's an agronomist and head of the Rural Development Aid Service in the Department of Agriculture, Fishery and Environment of the Balearic Islands in Spain. She has been working there since the beginning of the 2000s in different services, but mainly in aid management topic. And she will present the rural development plans and how they can support local varieties. And I think the presentation will be in Spanish. So, Maria, do you want to explain a bit the logistic?
Yeah, we have enabled simultaneous interpretation, Spanish-English for Gemma. So there is a person, that is David, that is going to orally interpret Gemma, the Spanish, and transfer it to English. So if you want to listen the presentation in English, you need to go to the interpretation bottom at the, I hope you will see it easily. If not, have a look on the three dots and then select English. I am going to enable the interpretation. Just 1 second, and then I hope you will easily find. Yeah, I think that now is working.
Yes, I think it works.
Okay,
Good.
great. So
Thank you very
please,
much.
go to the interpretation bottom and click English to hear Gemma, in this case, Daniel, sorry, in English. Okay? So, to you, back to you, Caroline.
Good, thanks, perfect. And so then after this presentation, we will have Maria Gernet from TP Organics, who's senior officer there. And TP Organics is the European technology platform for research and innovation for organic and agroecology. And it is hosted by IFOM Organics Europe here in Brussels. And she has been working them there since 2018, and she will present the TP Organics and EU funding opportunities for the research program. And finally, to finish this very feminine panel, we will have Pilar Martinez from the Daniel and Nina Carasso Foundation in Spain. So she's also an agricultural engineer with a PhD in agricultural economics. And before working in this foundation, she worked in development cooperation, also in relation to food security and management of water resources, as well as research in agriculture. And now at the Daniel and Nina Carasso Foundation, she is the Sustainable Food Program Manager, and she's notably working on projects related to research, value chain, and impact investing in sustainable food systems. And she will present more the capital investments and grants. So that's it for the presentation. I can now leave the floor to Jenna for the presentation on rural development plans measure.
And I am going to share my screen with Gemma's presentation. So just a minute, it's being opened. Okay. Okay, I guess you see my screen, right? Okay, Gemma, the floor is yours. Dime cuando quieres que las vaya pasando, yo las paso.
Vale, buenos días. Pues ya una vez realizadas las presentaciones, pedir disculpas de nuevo por no poder realizar la presentación en inglés, pero bueno, espero que vaya bien la traducción. Os explicaré, como ya ha dicho Caroline y María, las medidas de los planes de desarrollo rural para mejorar las variedades locales en las Islas Baleares. Si pasas. Para poneros en contexto, me gustaría citar varios datos que os pongan en situación de más o menos la situación de la agricultura en las Islas Baleares. Tenemos una superficie física en las islas de unos 5.000 kilómetros cuadrados. De estas, una superficie agraria útil de 211.000 hectáreas, de las cuales un 20% están acogidas al régimen de agricultura ecológica o certificadas en agricultura ecológica. En los últimos 10 años ha habido un retroceso de 28.000 hectáreas. Existen unas 7.300 explotaciones agrarias inscritas en el registro de explotaciones agrarias de las Islas Baleares. Las explotaciones de las islas son de un tamaño reducido y una orientación mixta agrícola-ganadera típica de las zonas insulares. Tenemos un tamaño medio de explotación alrededor de entre 14 y 16 hectáreas de superficie agraria útil. Esto es uno de los datos de media más bajos de todo el Estado español. Gracias a la insularidad tenemos una gran diversidad y una riqueza genética y sufrimos una fuerte presión urbanística que genera competencia muchas veces con la agricultura. ¿Pasa? Puedes pasar. Mediante el decreto 13 del 2018, del 18 de mayo, se crea el catálogo de variedades locales y la comisión de variedades locales. El catálogo de variedades locales de interés agrario de las Islas Baleares tiene los siguientes objetivos: evitar la pérdida y la erosión genética de las variedades locales, preservar un patrimonio agrícola en riesgo de extinción, cumplir con los acuerdos y tratados internacionales y evolucionar hacia una agricultura más sostenible, superar las limitaciones de la normativa estatal que dificultaban a los agricultores muchas veces la conservación y el uso de estas variedades. Se crea, junto con el decreto, la Comisión de Variedades Locales, que es un órgano coordinador, consultivo, de propuesta, de estudio, de asesoramiento y con una composición multidisciplinar, ya que forman parte de la administración, personal de prestigio de las universidades y las organizaciones agrarias. Las funciones de esta comisión son evaluar las inscripciones, proteger denominaciones tradicionales y fomentar la conservación y el uso sostenible de las variedades locales, preparar y elaborar planes de acción y coordinar iniciativas para la investigación y la recuperación de variedades en riesgo. Con esto, en el 2022 se elaboró el Plan de Acción de Biodiversidad Cultivada, que fue aprobado por la Consellería de Agricultura. Dicho todo esto, y habiendo hecho un poco la introducción, entramos ya en el seno de la presentación, ¿no?, que hemos venido a explicar. Las medidas de ayuda en los distintos periodos de programación en las Islas Baleares. Aunque me centraré en los dos últimos periodos o marcos financieros plurianuales, que ha sido el PDR 14-20, prorrogado hasta el 2022, y el periodo PEPAC 23-27, cabe decir que ya en las Islas Baleares convocamos y apoyamos el cultivo de las variedades en riesgo de erosión genética desde el periodo 2000-2006. Bueno, dicho esto, en el periodo 2014-2020 convocamos o programamos en nuestro PDR dos medidas. La 10.1.3, protección de variedades en riesgo de erosión genética, que comúnmente le llamamos VREG, y la 10.2, fomento de conservación, uso sostenible y desarrollo de recursos genéticos en la agricultura. Luego, en el periodo 23-27, programamos la intervención 65051, que es más o menos la misma, es la equivalente a la 10.1.3, y la intervención 6505.2, que es la equivalente a recursos genéticos. ¿Cuáles son los objetivos de estas medidas? Contribuir a detener y revertir la pérdida de biodiversidad, potenciar los servicios ecosistémicos y conservar los hábitats y los paisajes, dar apoyo a los agricultores que utilizan las variedades vegetales en riesgo de erosión genética de interés en las islas, por el trabajo y por el esfuerzo que realizan para conservar el material genético y para luchar contra su desnaturalización, así como preservar la genética de nuestras variedades autóctonas gravemente amenazadas. Por último, fomentar la conservación, el uso sostenible y el desarrollo de los recursos genéticos en la agricultura en las Islas Baleares. ¿A qué beneficiarios va dirigida estas líneas de ayuda? Ir explicando más o menos y comparando la línea de protección de variedades de erosión genética con la de fomento y conservación y uso sostenible de los recursos genéticos, ¿vale? Para la línea de erosión genética, los requisitos de los beneficiarios es que sean titulares de una explotación agraria y que esté inscrito en alguna asociación o agrupación cuyo objetivo sea la conservación o el mantenimiento de los cultivos en peligro de erosión genética. En cuanto a las explotaciones agrarias de estos agricultores, también deben cumplir ciertos requisitos. Estar inscritos en el registro de explotaciones agrarias, cultivar en alguna de sus parcelas una o varias variedades que constan en el catálogo de variedades locales de interés agrario de las Islas Baleares y disponer y dedicar como mínimo una superficie de 0,3 hectáreas en su explotación al cultivo de estas variedades. No voy a explicar los requisitos minuciosamente de cada convocatoria porque si no podríamos alargar esta presentación hasta el infinito. Solo explicaros unas pinceladas y si luego necesitáis hacer alguna pregunta, pues me decís. Los beneficiarios de la medida de recursos genéticos establecimos que debían de ser personas jurídicas, públicas o privadas, incluidos los grupos de acción local. Deben tener domicilio social y ámbito de actuación en las Islas Baleares y realizar proyectos para la conservación y la recuperación de variedades locales y la prevención de erosión genética y la pérdida de biodiversidad agraria. También pueden ser personas físicas en el caso que realicen un proyecto de conservación in situ en su explotación. Los requisitos a cumplir por los beneficiarios son los siguientes. Acreditar una solvencia técnica del responsable del proyecto para el desarrollo de los trabajos objeto, que se puede acreditar de 3 formas distintas, o justificar más de 5 años de experiencia en variedades locales, o disponer del asesoramiento de un técnico con una experiencia mínima de 2 años, acreditable en variedades locales, o tener 50 horas de formación específica en estas variedades. Además, debían presentar un proyecto de actuación con un importe de inversión mínima de 20.000 euros. Vale, pasamos. ¿Cuáles son las actividades subvencionables? Para la línea de riesgo de variedades en riesgo de erosión genética, se trata de una línea de un apoyo directo al agricultor. Los agricultores realizan la solicitud junto con la campaña de solicitud de ayuda de solicitud única de la PAC. Se dan primas por hectárea para el cultivo de variedades autóctonas en riesgo de erosión genética que estén inscritas en el catálogo. Y las primas oscilan entre 565, 600 y 800 euros por hectárea. Dependiendo, aunque os he puesto estos datos, depende en cierto modo de la convocatoria, ¿vale? Para la medida de recursos genéticos, las actividades subvencionables son la prospección, caracterización, descripción y elaboración de la memoria técnica para la inscripción de las variedades locales en el catálogo, la conservación in situ y ex situ de las variedades locales de las Islas Baleares, inventario de las variedades locales de las islas conservadas, fomento del uso de las variedades locales mediante actividades divulgativas e informativas, cursos de formación y elaboración de informes técnicos, recopilación y o reproducción de variedades locales, creación y o mantenimiento de bancos de semillas para conservar copias de material genético recuperado, creación o mantenimiento de colecciones de plantas, bases de datos y actividades de intercambio de información entre organizaciones, tanto regionales como nacionales o europeas, así como la participación en la Comisión de Variedades Locales de las Islas Baleares. se estableció una inversión máxima subvencionable por beneficiario de 100.000 euros. Los importes de las primas, algunos iban con costes simplificados y otros iban por facturas. ¿Cuáles fueron los resultados obtenidos de estos dos instrumentos de apoyo? Si hablamos de variedades en riesgo de erosión genética, os pondré unos datos curiosos. Separados por convocatorias, ¿vale? En el 2015, que fue el periodo de PDR 14-20, que se alargó hasta el año 22, se convocó una línea de ayuda con un periodo de compromiso de 5 años y se pagaron 875.000 euros de ayuda a lo largo de 7 años. Primero fueron compromisos de 5, hubo 2 años de prórroga y con la transición del PDR que llegó hasta el 2022, en el 2022 hubo una convocatoria con un compromiso solamente anual, en la cual utilizamos un gasto público total de 266.000 euros. En el 2015 hubo 65 agricultores acogidos, 360 hectáreas subvencionadas a lo largo de 7 años, como ya os he explicado. En el 2022 se acogieron 71 agricultores y 488 hectáreas. Cuando entramos ya en el periodo del PPAC, del Marco Financiero Plurianual 23-27, en el 23 se convocó la línea de ayudas y se han beneficiado de esta línea de ayudas y se siguen beneficiando 160 agricultores y hay unas 1.712 hectáreas subvencionadas. El compromiso es de 5 años. En cuanto a recursos, bueno, aquí he establecido un poco las hectáreas subvencionadas, mayormente es el grupo de cultivos herbáceos, 1.124,96 hectáreas, 326 de trigo variedad Seixa, 246 de frutales y de hortícolas casi 15 hectáreas. Estos son datos de los compromisos de 2023. ¿Vale? ¿Qué resultados obtuvimos en la de recursos genéticos? Si quieres pasar, María. Vale. De la medida 10.2 se convocaron durante el periodo del PDR 14-20 dos convocatorias. Una en el 2018, que se ejecutó un presupuesto de 498.179 euros. Fueron auxiliados 8 proyectos, los cuales se financiaron al 100%. Y en el 2022 hubo una última convocatoria, aprovechando los fondos Next Generation, que salimos a la calle con 500.000 euros o 570.000 euros. La incrementamos para que no se tuviese que hacer ni prorrateo ni concurrencia y al final se le destinó un importe de 675.000 euros. Se beneficiaron de ellos 9 proyectos que fueron financiados al 100%. ¿Cuál es la situación actual después de estas convocatorias en el catálogo de variedades? Pues gracias a estas convocatorias, el catálogo de variedades hoy en día tiene 453 variedades inscritas en el catálogo de unas 50 especies distintas. Como conclusión, y siendo ya muy breve, creo que es claro que estos dos instrumentos han sido herramientas clave para dar una seguridad jurídica y un soporte económico en la realización de las actividades descritas en nuestras islas. También añadir que creo que ha sido de vital importancia la voluntad tanto política como de todas las asociaciones y de todos los actores implicados a la hora de diseñar estas ayudas o estas medidas Hay un trabajo detrás importante de la Consellería, de las asociaciones, del IRFAP, de todas las personas implicadas. Y creo que esto es algo muy importante y ha puesto en valor y ha ayudado a desarrollar estas ayudas y que lleguen a los agricultores y a las personas de interés, así como dotar el catálogo, como ya veis, de las variedades autóctonas que están inscritas hoy en día y conservar la gran riqueza genética que tenemos en las Islas Baleares. Muchas gracias. Espero no haberos aburrido con la presentación. Y si tenéis alguna pregunta.
Perfect. Thank you very much. It was very interesting. It's very interesting to see the support for local varieties in this island. And so we will actually get the questions now for Gemma. If you have some, so you can raise your hand or put them in the chat. And I can actually begin with one, because you showed that there was a quite important increase in the numbers of farmers and hectares that have been supported with this program. So could you explain a bit the reasons explaining this?
A ver si te he entendido bien. ¿A qué pensamos que se debe este incremento entre los dos periodos? Bueno, creo que han confluido varias causas. Primero, un aumento evidente del presupuesto, ya que en el periodo 14-20 pasamos de unos 875.000 euros para 5 años, bueno, al final para 7 años, más 266.000 el último año, en total 1.100.000 euros en 7 años, y en el periodo PEPAC partimos de un presupuesto de 4.750.000 euros para un compromiso de 5 años. Por tanto, casi el presupuesto lo multiplicamos por 4. O sea, hay un compromiso evidente en apoyar estas ayudas. Después creo que es un punto clave, es la creación del catálogo de variedades locales. Creo que ha sido de vital importancia, ya que en los periodos antiguos o al principio del 14-20 partíamos de una base de 77 variedades más o menos, no me sé los números exactos, variedades auxiliables de unas 27 especies distintas, a hoy en día, tampoco sé si son números exactos a fecha de ayer, pero alrededor de unas 453 variedades auxiliables de 50 especies vegetales distintas. Aparte de todo esto que creo que ha propiciado y ha ayudado al aumento, creo que también es importante el esfuerzo que se ha hecho en cambiar y adaptar las convocatorias para facilitar, digamos, el uso. Como puede ser, en el periodo 14-20 existían superficies máximas auxiliables por grupo de cultivo, entonces esto parecía que vetaba un poco las superficies máximas, o sea, como el resultado, ¿no? Porque se establecían unos topes máximos a razón de, por ejemplo, 75 hectáreas auxiliables de cultivos herbáceos o de hortícolas 20, y en el periodo 23-27 se le dio un poco una vuelta de tuerca y los límites máximos que se establecen son por beneficiario y por variedad. Entonces esto nos ha permitido que hayan más hectáreas que se beneficien de estas ayudas. No sé si me he explicado.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Very clear. Anyone has other questions for Gemma? Yes, let's do like that. So please reply in the chat, and then everyone can also use the translation in internet so that we can all understand. And so back to English, and then moving on with the next presentation from Maria on TP Organics and EU funding. So please, the floor is yours.
Thanks a lot, Caroline, and hello, everybody. So it's nice to have so many Marias here and also some feeble colleagues. I will share in presentation mode. So now you should be able to see the presentation. Yes. Good. So I will present, as Caroline has introduced, TP Organics, and then also a bit the funding opportunities that exist at EU level. It will be quite complex, and some of you might not have much experience yet with EU funding. So I will keep it short for today, but if you have any questions, you can always reach out, and also you are welcome to become a member of TP Organics if that is of relevance for your organization. So as TP Organics, we are the only European technology platform for organic and agroecology, which means that we are recognized by the European Commission to give input in the EU research and innovation policies and programs. And we currently have 162 member organizations from really the whole value chain. So from farmer organizations to research institutes, consumer organizations, and also civil society organizations. And our mission is to shape research and innovation for more organic and agroecological approaches that contribute to a more sustainable and resilient food and farming systems. And on the next slide, you can see an overview of our member organizations. So we have a lot of umbrella organizations like Friends of the Earth, Greenpeace, and so on. But we also have 50 enterprise members, so companies active in organic food and farming, as well as digital innovation. And we also have national organizations, so many research institutes and universities. And then we also have 9 so-called national technology platforms, which you can see on the right side. And they represent us at the national level. So here's an overview of our activities as TP Organics. We mainly work on EU research and innovation policy. So trying to influence the policy and getting more calls on organic and agroecology. Then we also have capacity building for our members. So we provide webinars and brokerage services. And we also have our own events, so to discuss research and innovation trends and promote organic research. So we have an annual event called Organic Innovation Days in Brussels. And then also a Science Day at the annual Fairtrade Biofach in Germany. And we also communicate about funding opportunities towards our members. And then we have joint advocacy with other organizations and platforms. So now I'm coming to Horizon Europe, which is the main funding instrument of the EU for research and innovation, with a budget of 93.5 billion in total. And the main area that is of relevance for you is the so-called Cluster 6, which has the title Food, Bioeconomy, Natural Resources, Agriculture and Environment, and it has a total budget of 8.8 billion. And then there are 2 other instruments under Horizon Europe, the so-called partnerships, which are co-programmed and co-funded by and with the European Commission. And of the most relevance for you is the agroecology partnership, which just started its 2nd phase, and it will last until 2033. So it has 111 partners across 31 member states, associated countries, and third countries. And also the European Commission is part of it. And on the website of the agroecology partnership, it's also possible for you to directly find research calls launched by this partnership. And the other instrument is the so-called missions. So missions are a portfolio of actions across disciplines, and they have an ambitious and measurable goal within a set time frame. So they should have impact for society and policy making, and also be relevant for a significant part of society. So there are 5 mission areas under Horizon Europe, and the most relevant for you would be the EU mission A Soil Deal for Europe. And also under the EU funding portal, you can explore funding opportunities. So like the general work programs of Horizon Europe, the missions have work programs. And so you can also check if there are any calls that might be of relevance for your organization. And as you can see from the start of Horizon Europe in 2021 until last summer, the share of SME participants was more than 1/3, so quite high. It's not just the big universities. And now I'm coming to the types of actions that are funded by Horizon Europe that are of most relevance for SMEs. So it's the innovation action, which is all the activities directly aiming at producing plans and arrangements, or designs for new, altered, or improved products, processes, and services. And here 70% are funded of the activities and participants. And in the case of nonprofits, it's even 100%. And the other action is the coordination and support actions, which are all the accompanying measures, and they are 100% of all the activities and participants are funded. Then there's also the so-called European Innovation Council, which provides funding opportunities. I am not so familiar with that, so it's best if you check the website of the European Innovation Council, which is on this slide. And they also have different funding programs. So for example, the ESG transition, which targets all the activities that go beyond the lab. So market readiness grants. Then there is a pre-accelerator called to develop the technology business and investment readiness in widening countries. And the ESG Accelerator is a program that offers support, especially to startups and SMEs to scale business. And then there's also a possibility for cascade funding, which is called the financial support for third parties, which you might have heard of. And that is a European Commission mechanism to distribute public funding to assist startups, scale-ups, and SMEs in the uptake of digital innovation. So our member Reframe Food, they have an online platform called opencalls.fund, which provides really a lot of information. So you're invited to check that out. And I'm sure you will also get all the slides afterwards. And now I'm coming to the benefits of Horizon Europe for SMEs and also some potential challenges. So for SMEs, Horizon Europe provides access to funding, also to testing and pilot facilities and networks. And you also get support for innovative solutions, case studies, and training programs, and can participate in collaborative projects, and you also gain visibility. On the other hand, for SMEs, it might be challenging to understand the application process because it's quite complex. Also, you need strategic planning, and a requirement is there to form consortia with other organizations, which might be a challenge, but as you will see also, there are opportunities like TP Organics, where you are provided with brokerage services. And also there's a link if you want more information on this. And then I come to a point that is of relevance for SMEs. So the multi-actor approach is very relevant in Horizon Europe. It gained steady importance. So over the years, the number of calls that require the multi-actor approach has steadily increased. And so it's a significant factor for project eligibility and success. And here you can find more information on the Premiere Online Multi-Actor Academy, which is a free online learning space with various learning materials. Then I wanted to show you a bit how the Horizon Europe work programs look like. So under the cluster 6, you have 7 destinations. And of the most relevant in general are the first 2, biodiversity and farm to fork, so fair, healthy, and environmentally friendly food systems from primary reproduction to consumption, in short, farm to fork. And then destination 7 on governance. And I will go very quickly through the different calls that might be of most relevance, but if you are interested in any of those calls, then you are invited to check, of course, the whole work program. So now we have the work program 2026 to 27, and I will present some of the 27 calls of the most relevant. So the first one is under the destination 1, biodiversity, It's called Fostering Common Farmland Birds and Mammals for Resilient Fruit Production Systems, which funds 2 calls with a total budget of 12 million. Then of particular relevance for the organic sector is the call enhancing the competitiveness of organic crop breeding, which is focused on intercropping adapted varieties, and also 2 calls are funded with total budget of 12 million. And then under the second destination, Farm to Fork, we have a call on increasing the resilience of agriculture in water and nutrient scarce environments through digital innovations. Also 2 calls will be funded. And another call on improving understanding of the contribution of organic farming to sustainability. So also directly relevant to the organic sector, where 1 project will be funded. Then there's a call on enhancing farmers' profitability and resilience through innovations for diversified crops and value chains. Also 2 projects will be funded with 12 million. And a call on commercialization of food system microbiome solutions, where also 2 projects will be funded. And then we have another call on strengthening plant health, addressing emerging plant pest risks. Also 2 calls will be funded. And then coming to destination 7, there is a call on strengthening the resilience of European farmers through improved capacity in coping with risks and crises, where also 2 projects will be funded. And another governance call on improving analytical capacity for sustainable competitiveness of the agricultural sector, where 1 project will be funded. So that was very quickly the calls that I identified as of the most relevance for, especially the organic sector, but in general, the topics that you are working on. And if you go to the European Commission website of Horizon Europe, you will be directly find how to apply and who is eligible. So you directly see the funding opportunities. And also on the European Commission website, you can find some tips for preparing your proposal. So it's important to select the partners to build your consortium early. Also to write to the evaluation criteria, so the standard criteria, excellence, impact, and implementation. And there the impact section is often the most deciding factor. So there's also a complete guide that you can find on the website. And also I will say it later also. We have as TP Organics also webinars where you can learn more about tips for preparing your proposal. And I very quickly wanted to show you also the new Horizon Europe. So after 2027, they will start a new multi-annual financial framework, which is the overall budget of the EU. So it comprises also the common agriculture policy and all the other instruments that the EU is funding. And so Horizon Europe remains independent, but now there is a so-called European Competitiveness Fund, which you see on the graphic on the left side. And so there is a proposed budget increase to 175 billion, which is almost the double. And also Pillar 2 remains the biggest envelope, but with the lowest increase. And now the governance Pillar 2 will be under the European Competitiveness Fund. And the European missions are expected to continue until 2030. So the soil mission, for example. But that's still in the future. And as TP Organics, we are also keeping an eye on it and also advocating for having still organic calls under this new Horizon Europe. And how you can stay up to date. So we have a website called tporganics.eu, where you can find the section Get Involved. So you can find out how to become a member if you're interested. And as a member, you get really member-only updates on research calls and news. Also, you have the opportunity to influence EU research and innovation policy. So, for example, through becoming a part of our advisory board. And also you can increase your visibility and expand your network, for example, through our events. We also have a LinkedIn group for members called Organic Research and Innovation Projects and Blue Sky. And then I mentioned earlier, we have our annual event, the Organic Innovation Days, on the 3rd to 4th of November in Brussels. If you're interested, it is a public event, so everyone who wants to can join and is welcome. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Maria. I think it was very clear, also knowing it's quite a technical topic. So thank you very much for the presentation. And I propose to move on directly to the next one of Pilar, and then we can take questions to both Maria and Pilar after. So Pilar, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Caroline, and thank you, Maria, for the invitation. It's a real pleasure to be with you today. I'm going to share my presentation. So I'm Pilar Martinez. Well, Caroline presented me before, introduced me. I'm working in the Carazo Foundation, and I'm going to talk a bit about our activities in France and in Spain, and also to give you a broader view about philanthropy and private funding in Europe. So for those that don't know, the Carazo Foundation, we are a family foundation. The foundation was created in France in 2010 and in Spain in 2014. The foundation was created in honor of Daniel Carazo, who was the founder of Danone, and his wife, Nina. But we are a family foundation. We are not related to the company. Our objective to transform the society to build a greener, more inclusive and fulfilling society. We work in France and in Spain in two main areas: sustainable food systems to promote universal access to healthy food and that it's safe for people and for the ecosystems, and also art and citizenship to develop critical thinking and reinforce social bonds. We support projects, people, and we encourage the interaction between disciplines, sectors, this systemic approach that is now more mainstream. And we are driven by social impact. So we try to foster research, empirical knowledge, experimentation, evaluation, and for sure sharing our learnings. How we work? Well, we are a grant maker foundation. So we provide financial support. Two types of financial support. I give you later more details: grants and investment in projects that are that have a high potential for social impact. We also provide non-financial support. We were aware that the initiative organization that we support needs also some training, formation, capacity building to work much more on structurals or important skills for the success of the organization and their projects. That can be support on communication, strategic, different marketing. I mean, different issues, but with this idea that build more resilient organization. And we are also making a lot of effort in evaluation and management, impact management, let's say. This is a big issue for the foundation. I think that for the sector, foundational sector in general, because it's complicated, but we are trying to establish some evaluation programs to be able to share the impact of our program, but also to learn and to continue modifying and improving our activities. Well, as we are in talking about the thematic of the webinar, I will focus in sustainable food system. Our one of the program that we have at the foundation, and as I told you before, sorry, we have like two different financial instrument, grants and impact investing. So getting deeper into grants, we have 4 programs in our area. The general objective, as I told you before, is to accelerate the transition towards more sustainable food system that guarantee healthy food for people, but also the respect for the ecosystems. And we also believe in creating strong links between production, cities, and territories. So we have 4 programs. The first one is much more focused, let's say, on the primary sector. We call agroecological practices. The idea here is to transform the primary sector. And how we do, or what we do here, well, 2 main objectives: to foster incorporation of people in the agricultural sector. We have a strong program in Spain because producers are very old, so we need to regenerate the sector. And we are also working with cooperative, our agricultural, our agri-food cooperative, to foster the transition to more agroecological practices, let's say. So I give you some examples. Sustenta, it's a very interesting program. We work with different cooperatives in Spain, in different territories, different sectors, with the idea to work with them, no, in this transition to more sustainable practices. That can be different issues, economical ones, governance, or much more impact environmental issues and so on. The second program is territorialist value chains. Here the idea is to work with the value chain. We are also aware that food industry, distribution are key actors if we want to foster this transition to more sustainable food systems. So here the idea is to support. We are talking about here social economy initiatives, so small enterprises. We are not working here with big companies and so on. The idea is to promote alternative models and to help or support a small, we call in Spain obradores compartidos. I don't know how to say this in English, but the idea is like small industries that produce food, but with the idea always to support, to give a value added to the local producers, small local producers. So the idea here is to connect the local production with the local consumption. That's why we also talk about territory and to foster like a small, direct communication between the producer and the consumer. The third program, healthy consumption, we are also working. This is like 2 years ago. We have a new colleague on the team, and we start to develop this new program with the idea to work much more with the consumer, to foster, to develop programs that's more related to the food environment, to work with different actors with the idea that inform the consumer, that foster access, physical, economic access to sustainable food system. Here, a very nice program is Al Barrio. Here we work with healthcare experts to provide or to foster, to encourage sustainable food at the neighborhood level, let's say in different cities in Spain. And the final, the fourth, not the final, but the fourth program is New Narratives. Here we work much more with tools. We promote research in sustainable food system. We promote new narrative. We are now working on different programs to foster communication. We need to be able to communicate, to be understood by people, because sometimes we use some language that is not comprehensive. So the idea is just to develop this new narrative, and we are also starting to do some advocacy, supporting some networks and people who is very involved in these issues. An example, Alimenta is a think tank which includes this research side. There are different scientists with different backgrounds: medicine, agronomist, political science, nutritionist. The idea is to generate knowledge with this systemic view and translate this knowledge to well, the political side, no? This advocacy also. This is a grants program. So here we focus, as I told you before, in the social economy initiative, association, foundations, cooperative. These are grants. We are not looking for rentability or other issues. The idea is to foster or to support projects that are very located in the territory, that connect different sectors, that let's say involve the people in the projects, and that's all, more or less. Every program has his specificities and so on. Then we have the area of impact investing. As a family foundation, we have an endowment. This endowment is invested, and our board decided to use a part of this endowment in impact investing related with our mission, food systems or art. Let's say that in art is quite difficult for the moment, but in the sustainable food system area, we started to develop a strategy. We have different things. I will focus now in TINA, because we support from early stage initiative, this is TINA, but we are also making some investment in impact fund to work with more mature initiatives that are in other phases, in growth phases and so on. Because the idea here is to work with, not all, but I mean, as far as we are able to work with different actors, a smaller one, bigger one. With a small one, we try to work this capacity building of the organization, this business model, this idea to be able economically to be sustainable and to foster the impact of the initiative that we support. But we also work with other type of initiative that are very engaged also with the impact, but sometimes they are already economically sustainable, but we need to work much more on impact. But focus on TINA. TINA is a program that we developed in France and in Spain. The idea here is to support early stage initiative that can be social economy initiative, but also small enterprises. The idea is, it's a program of training, but also investment, soft loans between 50 and 100K, with very, very comfortable, let's say, condition for the initiative. The duration of the loans can be up to 7 years. There is support and training for the organization. There is also ad hoc post-investment advice during the duration of the loan. We also provide networking with other projects in the ecosystem of the foundation, but also with other investors and so on. And we create this program in collaboration with the SIP2B Foundation. They have a big expertise in these issues of training and support, and work with the with the initiatives. And here it's quite different. The type of initiative that we support are quite different, let's say, at the if we compare with the initiative that we support in our grants programs. Here the idea, yes, as is it alone, the initiative need to pay back this loan, no? So the idea is to work with initiatives that are profitable or potentially profitable. We are not here looking for big companies or no. It can be a small project that they need to have a business model or the idea to have it. We can work with the initiative to build this model, to diversify the business lines with the idea to foster the impact, but also to be able to build a initiative that will be sustainable in time. Sure, as in the grants line, we look for social transformation, so we are very rigorous with the question of the impact. We look also for initiatives that are that count on a committed team. It's very important. Well, as all things in life, the team, the people who are involved are crucial to be able to develop projects and to foster and to create an initiative. We also talk about scalability. We are not a tech fund that look for initiatives that are very scalable. It's not the idea. It can be scalable or not. It can be inspirational for other initiatives. So the idea is just to be able to increase the impact. That's for sure. That can be a local level, that can be for replicability, that can be for be inspirational for other initiative. Additionality for us is very important to support project that develop an alternative, that are disruptive, that are innovative. We are here to take risk. We are a philanthropic organization. We are lucky. We can take risks, and we need to support initiatives that can be not attractive for other investors, let's say. So this is Tina. I can give you more information and more detail if you are interested. We are now launching a new call for in project in Spain. So if you are interested, I will be happy to share more details. I'm moving for philanthropy in general, because Maria asked me to tell a bit about the foundation, but also to give a broader philanthropy. I'm not really an expert on philanthropy in Europe. I have to say that I know more philanthropy in Spain, but I will share the things I learned since I've been in the Carazo Foundation, and about philanthropy, venture philanthropy, this interest of philanthropy to move forward to investment or impact investing and so on. And the type of projects that can be interesting for philanthropy, from willingness to support, from less to more, starting for more. I think that philanthropy, as I told you before, we are here to take risk. Maybe public funding or some private funding cannot, but philanthropy is here to promote experimentation, innovation. So pilot projects are a kind of project that very interesting for philanthropy, because it's part of our mission to try to prove, to test, and then to learn, and then maybe to start to communicate, to share, to inspire another organizations. Or maybe these pilot projects cannot be are not good, no problem. I mean, we are here to prove, to test. So I think that as far as I know, philanthropy are willing to support this kind of projects. A scaling initiative, as I told you before, it's depending on the organization, but it's true that there is like interest, a growing interest in this venture philanthropy. This include grants and investment. And here there is a general idea that can be true or not, that if you are scalable, your impact is growing also. So as we are here to promote or to increase impact, if you are scalable, that's sure that your impact will be bigger. And scaling for me, or from our experience, is not only the capacity of your initiative to be, well, to grow, that it's a part, that's for sure. But you can also be scalable if you are able to accompany other initiative, if you promote or you inspire another organization to do things similar to those you do. Research, yes, research. We also foster or promote research. There is a long tradition of philanthropic support to research, but it's true that it's a sectoral focus. I mean, we can see a lot of funding in health or specific issues. But yes, research is it's also very interesting for philanthropy. And advocacy, I think there is an emerging interest to support advocacy, because we are aware that if we can foster policy change, we will be able to promote bigger changes. Here, I would say that there are different kinds of advocacy. As for the Carazo Foundation, we try to generate tools to support decision making, and this is very related also to research. I mean, we support to the generation of evidence-based issues that can be used for advocacy. But let's say that there is interest in different type of project, but pilot project can be or continue are still very interesting for philanthropy, let's say. And yeah, if you are searching for private funding or philanthropic funding, let's say some recommendations, suggestions from our view, let's say from our experience in Spain as a foundation that provide grants and provide impact investing. I would say that there is a bigger and bigger interest in systemic change. We are in the Carazo Foundation. That was our approach from the very beginning. But it's true that especially in the impact investing side, there is a bigger, it's now mainstream. Systemic change is now mainstream. So if you are interested to get funding from impact investing funds, I recommend you to try to be able to illustrate or to provide a cross-sectoral approach. Sometimes when you are very focused on, I don't know, produce seeds or whatever, you cannot be attractive for a impact fund that look for this cross-sectoral approach. So you have to be able to integrate other sectors of the chain in the proposal. How these seeds are going to be commercialized, are going to be used. That can be very interesting if you are interested in getting funding. This kind of the open source, we are talking about seeds, and there are a lot of problems with the ownership and access. So it's important to highlight how you will be able to foster access to these materials to all kind of producers. Regarding the thematics, there are increasing interest. You can see it organic, but let's say regenerative agriculture is very, very mainstream. biodiversity, climate change. So you have to be able to relate. It's related, that's for sure, but to explain how is the relation of your project with this biodiversity or climate change, how you can be able to foster crop diversification. It's clear, but sometimes you need to explain and be clear on this, and how this crop diversification will be used to build more sustainable food systems. And on the climate change adaptation, well, how important is your initiative or your activity to promote more resilient of the food system to climate change through traditional varieties normally. And there is also emerging innovations that can be interesting for funding your initiative. Payment for ecosystem services, but not the publics, but the private ones. Companies that are very interested in encourage that their suppliers adopt practice that enhance biodiversity. That can be, I don't know, there are some examples of Danone that I know more, or Nestle, or these bigger companies, but other companies that can be interesting in funding these kind of things. And that lately you can see much more and more interest also in natural and biodiversity credits, not carbon credits, but this kind of economic incentive to promote ecological restoration. So I think that there are more and more opportunities for your sector, but the idea or the important thing is to speak the same language that investors, especially if it comes to private investor companies and so on. And for me, the key or the crucial elements are to be able to explain this cross-sectoral approach, to be able to relate your initiative to these thematics that now are mainstream. So it's like it is, and also try to explore this emerging innovation that can be very interesting for your organization. And that could be all. Thank you so much. I'm sorry for the English, because now I'm working more in French and I don't have this vocabulary
It was very good, don't worry. I think
English.
everyone could understand. Thank you very much. It was very, very interesting and very inspiring to see also the support from foundations like you. So we are a bit late on time. So I think that if one of you have a very important questions that you want to ask to either Maria or Pilar, it's the moment. And if not, then I suggest that Maria, we move on to the break, right? And to then the other panel discussion.
And okay, we are going to start the last session that I will be moderating. So this panel is going to focus on strategies to ensure the financial sustainability of organic breeding organizations. And for this discussion, we have two speakers. So first we have Karl Bodenbeek, who is a co-team leader together with Katrin Nerberg at the Research and Breeding Department of Dottol Förderhof in Germany. The aim of this initiative is to develop cereal and vegetable cultivar adapted to organic and biodynamic farming systems. And then we have also David McCaithen, a researcher studying agroecological transition in Argentina, with a background in anthropology and climate policy. His work with BioLeft, that is the organization he is going to present, focuses on participatory plant breeding and emerging financing strategies for agroecological innovation. So thanks a lot to both for joining us today. And to begin, I would like to invite a few of you to briefly introduce your initiative So where it is based, what it does, what are their main activities. So, Cal, could you start, please, presenting your initiative? Do you hear me? Yes.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. So I tried to share my screen. I hope it works. Yes?
We
Yes,
are
it does.
seeing your
Emails.
email
Oh no,
box. Yeah.
that's bad. And then I have to, sorry, I have to try to.
So the other screen.
Is it now better?
Not yet, but it will come. Yeah, that's it.
That's it. I'm sorry. So thanks very much for the invitation. I'm happy to be here. It's a really interesting, inspiring seminar. So yes, my name is Karl Vollenweider. I'm from Germany, and I will try to present the situation in. Oh, it still doesn't fully work. I'm sorry. Try again. Now it should be better. So I try to present the situation in Germany. In general, I will focus on organic plant breeding first, which really means the development of crops, organic from the start, as we sometimes call it. So the whole breeding process will be under organic conditions, and I will focus on arable crops, since vegetables and arable crops and also fruits are quite different, and I will focus on arables. So in Germany, we have initiatives since a long time, since the 1980s, end of 1980s, but that was really a start in small environment, very small initiatives in the beginning. Now it's still small. We have 4 non-profit initiatives, which are on the slide. In addition, we have also a few individuals. So there are even it's possible as individual persons to have organic breeding, and there are the biggest initiatives have up to 10 permanent employees, but that is not full-time employees. That is just a total number. Full-time is maybe half. The biggest one, the Swiss initiative, has also locations in Switzerland, and they have up to 19 employees. The initiatives are in a network, and they try to focus on different areas. For instance, the Swiss colleagues, they focus a lot on bacon quality. They have really wheat with excellent bacon quality. And on the slide, you see a part of our breeding nurseries at Ottenfelder Hof. So these very many small parcels, that's how it looks like in the field. I tried to summarize here on the slide the breeding programs, so the fully organic breeding programs in Germany in arable crops. And I have put here the 4 bigger initiatives and the marketed cultivars. So the cultivars per crop species which are really on the market. So you see in wheat, the first column, there are quite a few. So we have up to 10 cultivars. And then also spelt, there are 7 cultivars on the market. And then for the others, you see that also the initiatives try to focus on different crops. And more, for instance, einkorn, like smaller crops, and really try to focus on many crops. There are crops which are not on the list, like sunflower, rapeseed, and on some of them we work, lupins also, and some of them we don't. And just breeding takes a long time. So I encourage you to take into account the time aspect with all your considerations and business plans. We also don't solely work on standard varieties, but also on organic heterogeneous material for wheat, for peas, for rye, and for maize up to now. And just to conclude, So I emphasized in the last webinar just the importance of also, if you have these cultivars after maybe 10 years of breeding, to put them on the market is not necessarily the most easiest part as well, because the seed multiplication has to be done fully under organic conditions, and that is a bottleneck because your competitors most often don't. They multiply for 1 year in annual crops under organic conditions. You have to do it from the start. So you will sometimes, depending on the crop, struggle with diseases, with high weed pressure, and you are at an economic disadvantage, first of all, but you have this selling point to really also sell this integrity. And for this reason, we built a company which is called Biosat, so in English, something like organic seed, and we did it together. But this initiative is very young. It's only a few years old. In markets mainly in Germany, but also in other countries like France, Czech Republic, and Austria. So I guess that's it for a very brief overview. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Carl. Very, very clear in these 3 slides. And now, David, could you present to us BioLeft, please? You are muted, David.
There, you can see the slides, right?
Yeah, perfect.
Great. Well, good morning. Thanks for the invitation to participate in this webinar. It's been really interesting listening to the other presentations. Well, it's a privilege to share with you guys today. My name is David McKithen. I'm here representing a broader interdisciplinary team working at BioLeft in Argentina. Much of what I have to share today builds off of our conversations and discussions with that broader team. BioLeft is a collaborative initiative based in Argentina. It works with on open and participatory seed innovation. It brings together farmers, plant breeders, researchers, organizations to develop alternatives to the increasingly concentrated seed systems in Argentina, and to strengthen the availability of diverse locally adapted seeds. The initiative focuses on building distributed networks for conservation, improvement, and circulation of seeds. The main activities that we lead in BioLeft are participatory plant breeding, collaborative evaluation of varieties in farmers' fields, the development of digital tools that support the exchange, documentation, and traceability of these seeds. And another key component is the development of legal tools inspired by open source principles, which aims to keep seeds accessible and prevent their enclosure by restrictive intellectual property rights. In terms of crops, BioLeft has worked mainly with tomatoes and with corn, as well as other crops, depending on the particular network that gets involved. But corn and tomatoes have been our main crops. The material developed are typically open pollinated varieties and heterogeneous populations that continue evolving through farmer selection. The main users of these and markets for these seeds are agroecological and organic farmers, small-scale producers, and seed networks that are interested in diversified varieties. Beyond the seeds themselves, BioLeft also focuses on building the social and institutional infrastructures that make collaborative breeding possible. I'll discuss that later in the other questions.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much to both for introducing your initiatives. And it's very helpful to have this frame to now discuss more in depth financing strategies. Okay, so in this session, we are going to tackle 3 thematic blocks. We are going to talk about financial strategies for organic plant breeding, then key factors for financial sustainability and governance. And the third block will be the role of intellectual property rights and open source licenses for the sustainability of the initiatives. So let's start with the first topic. So I would ask you to answer to these main two questions. So on the one hand, what strategies does your initiative use to ensure the financial sustainability of its organic plant breeding work? And also, how do these different funding sources relate to the cost of breeding activities? Who would like to start? Carl? Or David?
I don't mind.
Okay.
I
Then we
can.
will switch. Then we will switch in the next vlog.
Excellent. So I will
Okay.
start now. And
Okay.
so first of all, maybe I would like to emphasize that really sustainability here is really important, because sometimes sustainability is referred to as a vague concept or something. Here it really isn't, because you have to sustain your financial income streams for at least until the variety is developed. So, and there we are talking about time frames depending on the crop. It's 10 years, it's 15 years. In fruit breeding, it's more. So time is really of the essence, and I encourage everybody to think about business plans and take into account the time, really the time perspective, because it's quite easy to not quite easy, but it can be done to get a lot of money in 1 year. But that's sort of not the point in plant breeding. And what is our strategy? Where does our income come from? We heard about royalties. We can talk more about this. In the case of our initiatives, it's slightly more than this 5%, which we heard yesterday. It can be up to 15%, which are really contributions from royalties. But of course, this only works if you already have varieties. Otherwise, it doesn't. And for many crops, we don't. And there you have to come up with other solutions. So donations from foundations are really important because often foundations have this longer time perspective. Not always, but often. That's quite important. We have in Germany this very good fortune to have this seed fund, which was presented in Maria Theresa's. It's limited in the amount, because you have to think that you have to share this. We have to share it with the fruit breeders, with the vegetable breeders. We only get a certain part, and that is not more than 20% of, for instance, our budget. Research projects are an important, actually, like European, national, even local research and innovation projects are important, but they have quite a problem with the time horizon and with the government. If you have a government which supports you, it's good. If it changes, it can all go away. So yes, this has been managed. And in general, I would just say diversify. Don't just diversify your seeds, which is a good strategy, like organic heterogeneous material. Also diversify your income streams, because there is some dependence. Even if you deny it, there is some dependence on your donors, and there is no way around it. And one way around it, maybe to some extent, is diversification. Thank you. Yeah.
Great.
Well, I'll build off that. So Carl has explained many of the challenges that come with organic breeding, especially, I mean, in general, beyond the geographical context, continuity through time, the political changes, and BLF are one of the most important sources of support have been public and philanthropic funding for research and experimentation. BLF has received support from research grants and foundations that are interested in biodiversity, agroecology, open science. We have to look in different directions to see what grants can connect with the work we do. These are essential for supporting early stage breeding work, experimentation, coordination of our networks, and the development of tools such as the digital platforms and participatory protocols. These tend to cover operating costs or go towards operating costs, so research time, coordination of the field trials, data collection, facilitation of farmer-breeder collaboration. Because it's decentralized, our work is decentralized, a lot of work goes into, the time goes into coordinating different actors. We've also experienced or explored service-oriented and knowledge-based activities, so like trainings, workshops, funding for participatory evaluations. Well, I mentioned digital infrastructures. And these activities don't replace the funding for breeding itself. So that doesn't necessarily cover, but they do help diversify the revenue streams, like Carl mentioned. And so that helps support the coordination work, the team that's proposing different ideas. So a large part of the work is also sustained by in-kind contributions from the network. So volunteer time or resources that are facilitated through particular connections. That's harder to quantify monetarily, but part of our breeding work takes place on farms rather than in centralized research stations. Farmers contribute their land or a portion of their land for the evaluation of a crop, or so they're donating their management, their selection activities. They have, of course, benefit from the wider network of farmers and breeders and researchers that are collaborating. Some members of the core team in BLF also contribute their time voluntarily. Then universities and public institutions support the initiative by providing office space, logistical support, administrative work, research infrastructure. In most cases, this support arises from individuals that look for ways to connect possible funding streams to our initiative. So it's I would say it's more of a matter of personal commitment by individuals within public institutions than a pre-existing program that we just apply to and get funding from. So it does depend a lot from specific individuals and their resourcefulness, in connection with our work. If we distinguish operational costs and longer term investments, most of the operational costs, like I mentioned, are typically supported by project funding and research collaborations. And then some of the longer term investments, such as building breeding populations, development infrastructure, maintaining the digital tools, they tend to rely on multi-year research projects, institutional support, and longer-term institutional partnerships. But more broadly, I would say that even when discussing financial strategies, in an honest discussion, this extends beyond just the monetary terms. BLF operates with a collaborative network, and a significant part of our sustainability comes from the commitment of people who believe in the project, contribute time, knowledge, space, and their resources.
Thank you to both. I was thinking, in the case of Carl, to what extent do you integrate the sources coming from selling seeds to the costs of organic breeding or not? Of this is a separated even initiative with Biosat, and you separate it from the cost of organic plant breeding. And if you're in your case in BioLeft, it's not clear for me if you also sell seeds or not. If you could, explain a little bit this, please.
Well, income streams from selling seeds, we don't have directly. So because I try to emphasize that it's not even so easy for the seed salespeople, if they really have to compete on the market, it's not so clear that they even have a lot of extra revenue which they can spare, because organic varieties means also extra burden, but we have the royalties. So this we have, that is roughly 10%, also depending on the crop, of the seed sales, which go back to the organic breeding initiatives. So these income streams exist, and these are 15%.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
but more, I mean, of course, direct seed sales, from your breeding nursery, but that is, in our case, negligible. So
Okay.
and we give away seeds for free, usually, because just to help to start this breeding multiplication, that is not an income stream for us, seed sales directly.
Great, Carl, thanks. And in your case, David, does BioLeft sell seeds also?
So I was going to mention that a bit later, but yeah, well, we're connected with open source licensing, so it's not that we're against selling seed. So I mean, that is a possibility, but the market and the numbers are at a very, very small scale. So most of the breeding cycle itself is often when you have small producers that are working in the evaluation of seeds and so on. After that, there's often just free exchange of seeds. So it's at this point it's not developed.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And then we continue with the next blog. And here we would like to know, what factors do you think that are essential to ensure the financial sustainability of organic plant breeding initiatives? From your, what do you think about those factors? And how does financial sustainability influence governance models from your perspective? So now we can go first with David and then to Carl.
So some of the principal factors for financing organic plant breeding is the diversification of funding sources, like we mentioned earlier. So just to put it in context, I know I think most of the viewers are in Europe, but in Argentina there are 3 breeding pathways. I mean, this is a simplification, but it gets to the general context of our initiative. So you have public or private institutions that direct the objectives in the breeding process. Those are typically funded by state investment or IPRs. Then in a second breeding pathway, you have informal off-the-grid seed exchanges among small producers. Normally those seed exchanges are facilitated by university infrastructure or public agricultural institutions like seed banks, and that is off the grid. Most of those varieties aren't registered, and so there's a form of evolutionary breeding through those exchanges, and they're typically non-commercial exchanges. And then a third form of breeding or pathway of breeding, which we kind of fit into, is decentralized co-production, or our specific proposal, I guess, is commons-based participatory plant breeding. Each of these pathways depend to some extent on public resources, whether it's direct financing or just institutional facilities, human capital. However, with the current political situation has defunded most agricultural sector, and especially organic. I mean, if you go, I just mentioned 3 pathways in general. Then if you go into organic or agroecological, it gets much narrower. And so public funding towards university research and agriculture has been massively defunded recently. And so that impacts the breeding in general, but it's specifically or more heavily on organic breeding. So in our experience, collaboration and diversification of resources and funding provides a bit of resilience amidst this institutional precarity. Research grants, partnerships with public institutions, collaborations with the farmers and seed producers, project-based support from specific foundations. Each of these sources support parts of the breeding process, so it's not usually covers the full thing, but portions of the breeding process. And that diversification helps maintain that continuity. Carl mentioned earlier that they're long processes, and so finding support through it all is challenging. When farmers, researchers, and seed producers are involved actively, The initiative is supported not just by external funds, but through the shared infrastructure, the field of experimentation. So we mentioned earlier, a lot of in-kind contributions. And the network itself is part of the sustainability strategy. Here on the next slide, we have that as identified as like associativism or asociativismo in Spanish, but it's a distribution of the cost among many actors. Another factor is the alignment between the breeding model and the institutional context. So this ties into the second part of the question. Because organic breeding often requires longer time horizons and decentralized experimentation than compared to conventional breeding. In our case, maintaining a participatory governance model is an explicit objective, and farmers and other actors involved in the breeding process contribute by defining their priorities, evaluating varieties, and shaping the general direction of the work. And this helps ensure that the breeding responds to the needs that are expressed within the system. And participatory governance, though, requires time, coordination of various actors, and facilitation. And that often isn't covered by traditional research funding. So that's one of our ongoing challenges, is how to ensure that governance structures that enable collaboration are themselves financially supported. But overall, our experience suggests that financial sustainability and governance are closely linked. So funding models that prioritize openness, collaboration, and long-term experimentation tends to support governance structures that are more inclusive and network-based. And in our particular context, that has shown resilience.
Thanks a lot, David. It's very clear, and this concept, associativism, is new for me. Carl, do you want to give your input also on this?
Yes, I can try to emphasize certain points. So one point which also David mentioned before, it really depends on the actors. It depends on the people actually doing it. So one point is, for instance, in our case, our breeding initiatives emerged from a farm. It's still called Dottenfeldhof. That's the name of a farm. And all the challenges, which it was really challenges at the farm, and the farmer said we have to start breeding because we have to solve these problems, which I think is important. Just the motivation for doing things is really important. And another point is, of course, especially to ensure the sustainability, it's really important to have dedicated people at all levels. So, of course, as David mentioned, at government levels or at research institutions, it's most often it's individuals who help you, and that's true at all levels. So that's true from the outside. Of course, the individual donations come because people donate. The farmers sow organic varieties because they understand it and they try to make a contribution. And that is also true, and it's something which is probably not spoken about very often. It's true about the people working at the organic breeding initiatives. So it is true that the salaries in our initiatives are not competitive at all. So if I have job interviews, I mean, it just happens that people walk in and walk out if they more or less get an understanding of the salary structure, which we do have. That is a problem that has to be addressed because we are not competitive to other breeders at the moment. I know that is also true for our Swiss colleagues. That is true for other countries as well, I guess. And I hope that it can be continued, to find people who want to do that work. But this shouldn't be underestimated when we talk about structures and revenue streams, that we're really also talking about individuals.
You are specifically now talking about salaries of the staff,
Of the
right?
staff,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
Salaries of the staff itself, compared to, other breeding companies
Yeah.
and the work which has to be done is to some extent similar, but it's not competitive in a way. There has to be also idealism from the employees themselves. That is just part of the truth as well. To some extent, that's different at different places. That's clear. But to give a full picture, I think that should be mentioned as well.
Perfect. Thank you very much. This is you are raising a topic that was not that I wasn't aware this question of salaries that is different from other breeding initiatives. But thank you very much, Carl. And then let's move on the third block that it's intellectual property rights and open source licenses. So from your experience, what are the main advantages and limitations or on IPRs and open source license in the context of organic plant breeding? Do you see or have you tested hybrid approaches? And do you have concrete examples? Who wants to start now?
If you don't
Carl?
mind, I can try to
Of course.
start
Yeah.
and share a slide if it works. I'm not sure whether it works. Oops.
Yeah, commercialization
sorry.
of PRM, right? Yeah.
Yes. So here I tried, that's really an oversimplification, and the situation may be different in other countries. So that's, I think, quite Eurocentric, what is on this slide. But we have first, we have really the seeds or the plant reproductive material in general. And one question is, do we see this plant reproductive material as a commodity or not? I mean, do we sell it? Even that is not quite clear. I mean, it could be seen as a gift. Plant reproductive material, it shouldn't be sold. I mean, this opinion does exist, and it is handled like this for some actors. And then there is this question of in Europe of intellectual property rights, and we have here this system of UPOV, or variety protection. And here I set this in orange. So different actors see this differently in Europe. There is, for instance, difference between vegetable breeders and cereal breeders in our networks. Of course, it has advantages and disadvantages. The advantage is, do you have full breeders exemptions up to now? So other breeders can fully use varieties, which is quite valuable, and it shouldn't be underestimated that in Europe, it's really also a barrier against patents, which are further below. But I have put another let's say level, and these are reseeding fees. So farmers in this in the European system with the variety protection, there is the breeder's privilege, which is that other breeders can use it, but there is also the farmer's privilege, which means that farmers can save their own seeds. However, they usually have to pay, and these are these reseeding fees. That's a license fee which goes to the breeder, which a farmer has to pay if he saves his own seeds. So this we don't do at Ottenfelderhof. We don't want to have this surveillance of the farmers, and we don't participate in the conventional structure. So we have this on a more, let's say, voluntary basis. So we ask the farmers for reseeding fees, but we don't do any surveillance or force them in any way. And then there are, of course, the patents, which are an even stronger form of intellectual property rights, and these are not compatible with organic plant breeding. That is quite clear in e-farm standards and others. And the others are, I would say, gray areas or areas which different actors see differently. That's at least the case in Germany. And we have this open source seed initiative, also a German initiative. I know that there are others, like the original one in the US, Czech Kloppenburg, which is more like a pledge. In Germany, they try to make it legally binding, these open source seed initiatives. This is also seen critically by certain actors. So I would say 22% of my gray hairs on my head come from this huge fight which we have between this variety protection and open source seeds. We actually do both. But I had to fight in all directions because these are not quite compatible, let's say. These are two different worlds sometimes, and that's a pity to my mind. So what the variety people who favor variety protection say that really open source seed, at least in this legal form, contaminates this world because it excludes variety protection, and it includes it like a virus because it includes it all the time. And that are very much against this. That's the problem of the people who favor variety protection. But of course, the other side can also be understood, because variety protection has very bad consequences, sometimes, especially in the global south. And do we really want to have such a system in Europe, which has such bad and supported in organic breeding? So I see sort of both sides. And it would be good if we could have compromises. The previous generation it was clearly difficult for them to find good compromises. And maybe we have a chance to work on this, but I will be interested in your opinion also, David. David, sorry.
Great. Well, you've explained very well those differentiations. On those, the difference or the technical differences between each, I'm definitely not an expert. I'm new. I mean, within the last year, I've been focusing on this, but you have much more practical experience in that. In our particular context, I mean, intellectual property rights, they can capture value from new varieties and help finance breeding activities. But as you mentioned, they can also restrict the use of genetic material, which can limit farmers' autonomy and reduce the possibility of collaborative innovation. From our perspective of participatory and organic breeding in Argentina, one of the main advantages of open source licenses is to help keep those genetic resources accessible. Those seeds can circulate between farmers, breeders, seed producers, and ensure that derivatives in the future remain open to further breeding. But there are gray, I mean, it is a constant discussion, like you mentioned, in terms of certain protections, user protections, and so on. We, on our platform, we have I'll share it here, let's see, a license, not to read it now, but just to know, just show that it's on the website that you guys can look at. But we promote a open source license. In Argentina, there's a real absence of organic breeding models in general, regardless of commercial intent. So while there are, the literature on open source breeding and organic breeding, there's all sorts of strategies of incorporating costs through seed sales or retail, certified secondary products. I mean, some of these have been mentioned in previous presentations. This is very few of those options are in practice, or it's at a very nascent point in Argentina. And the support for open source comes from different motivations in Argentina. So talking to a maize producer the other day, and trying to get his perspective on this, and I was trying to understand a bit more before this presentation from his experience, and he expressed that just finding any organic seed was very difficult. That it's not that it doesn't exist, but it's very small quantities. It's very difficult to get. And even finding untreated conventional seeds can be difficult for farmers, depending on the moment of the year. If they get it, if they have to order the seed at a particular time before, I mean, that's not even within organic, but just untreated conventional. So amidst this seed scarcity, he expressed, for example, his support for open source also comes within a context, institutional, normative, legislative context, where there's movements and legislation now. I mean, it hasn't passed yet, as far as I know, but to further restrict the possibility of saving seed and exchanging seed, which right now in Argentine law, farmers can collect seed and exchange them, but it's possible that in the very near future, they'll have much further restrictions. And so this particular person I was discussing it with, he mentioned that OpenSeed provides an alternative and an alternative seed source and a way of ensuring access to seed. So it wasn't just an ideological commitment, but a pragmatic strategy to safeguard against the loss of autonomy. And so that's just to consider in this context. Let's see. A practical example in BioLeft is the development of our participatory breeding programs with farmers where they have populations or open pollinated varieties are improved collectively. The farmers and breeders can evaluate the materials in the field. They can select promising lines and then multiply the seeds. And the legal tools that we provide through BioLeft in the last few years helps ensure that these seeds remain available. So it doesn't close the discussion. I mean, it's still a very open discussion, as Carl was mentioning. But the goal for us is not only to produce varieties, but also to create institutional arrangements that support longer-term collaboration within our particular context. So it's obviously ongoing, and we still have to figure out further strategies to finance and market strategies or arrangements with seed companies. But I mean, it's a work in progress.
Great. Thank you very much to both. Yeah, the objective of this space was just to show these gray areas also, and the possibilities that are on the table, and let's say the negative and positive elements that they can bring. So from this perspective, Carl, you were talking about compromises. And I have the question, do you see or are you working in common spaces, next steps to conduct those reflections and arrive to potential compromises? Are there those kinds of spaces open or not really? Or is this a tough question?
It's a very tough question.
Okay.
Because I keep working on compromises. We had quite a fight about hybrids within biodynamic breeding, and we reached a compromise now. So you can just focus on so much during a given moment of time that I think is also what we have to learn. We should have more like discussions also looking at different countries. So what David, for instance, mentioned last, that of course you have a shifting regulatory framework, and in Europe we will have this too. I mean, we shouldn't be naive about this. So we can't just solve this problem, you know, with open source and organic varieties and everything else stays the same. No, I mean, we will have GMOs, hopefully not, but it could happen. We will certainly have more patents. We already do have more patents. And one question is, how can we together fight against patents? Because that has to be our ultimate goal, at least. And we shouldn't have too much infighting, you know, but that's in alternative circle, as many of us know. That's easier said than done. We always have infighting. But we should try to reach compromises. I mean, that is really, and I think there is possibilities to reach compromises, I'm sure. But in a shifting environment, I'm afraid.
Thank you. And now we have some minutes for questions. So dear participants, if you have questions, is the time to raise your hand or write them into the chat. Any question? Everything was clear? At some point, Georgios, but it's another topic. So I would prefer to have other type of questions first. Georgios, he was. Oh,
I would have a question
okay.
for
Thank you,
Carl
Teresa.
and David. To Carl, my question is from the breeder perspective, what is the most difficult challenge of the open source license and pledge? And for David, the question is from the perspective of a farmer in Argentina, what is the most interesting opportunity of this type of license?
Yeah, thanks. I try to make it quick. One problem is just some technical aspects, like it's huge, this legally binding, at least. The pledge is much easier, I think. So you have to send and you have to convince all your partners, along the value chain, because we don't sell seeds, as I mentioned. These our partners do. You have to convince them to use this huge paperwork and these type of things. That's difficult. Apart from this, of course, to make your breeding work financially sustainable. So what we do at Ottenfelder Hof is we put open source seeds on OHM. Because, on OHM, you anyway can't have variety protection. So it makes sense to work on open source seeds. We still have these problems that some of our colleagues don't like this at all that we do, because in principle, you can't take such an OHM and produce from it a variety, which then you put variety protection on. That's why they are so angry about this system. And this I can understand. And I just promise them that we will never, use our open source rights. But that's not good. I think we have to work on a compromise. I'm sorry, but that's very quick, some aspects.
And David, what about?
Well, a farmer's perspective. Well, I kind of mentioned in terms of just in the context of Argentina, ensuring, anything that promotes the possibility of or accessibility of organic seed in general is something that's obviously looked for by farmers in that sector because it's scarce. I don't want to go too much in history or the social political context, but from what I understand, also, historically in Argentina, a lot of this isn't necessarily organic, but just seed has been often financed by public institutions. And then later corporations come in and then use either at a later point in the development breeding process, or they take particular breeds and then use those derivatives and then put more control on them. And so, and then legally, they don't have to demonstrate where those breeds came from, but public institutions do, like they're the line. If I think that's how it works, or has worked historically. And so also open source kind of comes in with that backdrop of avoiding appropriation of seed. And in many cases, well, I mentioned the second pathway that is more like just the seed exchanges, informal seed exchanges that are off the grid. So most of those aren't registered. And one of the critiques of that mode, although it's, from a community level, it's great. You have, individuals and sharing maybe varieties that they've been growing in their backyard or in their own small farms at a community level, a cultural level. That is often great. But those seeds don't have a legal protection. So there's risk of those seeds coming under legal restrictions by a corporation or another group that works on those seeds. So I don't know if that responds to the question.
Thank you very much, David. Mariana, do you have a question or not? Not anymore. Okay. So I think that we can close the panel here. Thank you very, very much to Cal and to David for your contributions. I get like two conclusions in my mind. On the one hand, is there a question? On the one hand, we need diversified seeds, so we need diversified funding sources and diverse collaborations. I was thinking, and the more friends, the better. The more number of friends, the better. And that we need to continue working on understanding the different strategies that we need to put in place to reinforce organic plant breeding, to reinforce the presence of cultivated biodiversity and also farmers' rights, as we were talking before. Okay, so with this, I pass the word to Mariano, to the coordinator of LiveSeeding, to close the webinar. To you, Mariano.
Mariano, just a little word of thanks. I really want to express my gratitude to you for organizing this training, this today event. I find it incredibly interesting. I really enjoy the diversity of inputs that you have put together in this agenda. It's not very easy to put together such a diverse, informative, and thorough panel. And I would like to thank really very much every single person that has participated, that has put time in preparing such incredible, interesting presentation. That's really, really invaluable and very appreciated. I also want to thank the interpreters because it's a job we sometimes don't see, but it's incredibly important. So really, thank you. Thank you to you all. And then let me take the opportunity to say that the next webinar is on business models and business plans development, and it's planned for the 13th and 14th of May 2026. Maria Carrascosa and the team will be sending you information on this very soon, so stay tuned. Thank you, Maria, again. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Have a nice rest of the day. Bye-bye.